I'm still wondering why I said I would do this. I said I would do this, and I thought to myself after I left, what was I thinking when I said to Pastor Dawson, you know, the church has done so much for me, and basically LCM changed my life, plus the program of AA, that I felt I should give something back. And I've spoke to people before, but it's never been to a group of people who haven't come from where I've come from, so it's a little different. I can sit in a room of alcoholics and talk to them all day because there's so many similarities in our behaviors and things that we've done. But that is how I found my way to Christ, to God, to my higher power. It was from going into AA, you know, from making that first phone call and walking in the room. I don't know why I did it. I'm not sure. Maybe I had to get up that morning to see if my car was in the driveway again. Because sometimes I didn't know. I'd go up and I'd be in bed. I'm like, did my car get home? I go out in the garage, oh, it's here. It's here, you know. What did I do? Because I blacked out a lot, you know, and I still drove. So God has a purpose for me. There's no doubt in my mind that there's some purpose in my life for me, and I don't know what it is. Because I should have been dead a lot of times, and I'm not. I'm still here for some reason, so I have a purpose. I was thinking about that new movie coming out, The Dog's Purpose. And I'm thinking, well, I might be like that little dog. You know, I have a purpose in this life, and I'm not sure why, but I'm here, you know. I'm the mother of 3 of my own children and 5 stepchildren. I am going to have my 14th grandchild. I'm not going to, you know. My 14th grandchild is going to be born in January. And I am back in Illinois here right now watching a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And the 2-year-old has hand, foot, and mouth right now. And she is just headstrong and obnoxious. And I pray. I'm in bed at the latest I stayed up was last night to see that Cubs game. I have been in bed at 8 o'clock, 8:30 because I am exhausted. So it's a little about my family. I have 5 brothers and sisters. I am the only sober brother and sister. One of my sisters, unfortunately, my youngest sister, is suffering from early onset Alzheimer's. Otherwise, I believe she'd still be out there with the drinking, you know. They're all sick in some way. 2 of my brothers in their early 50s have had quadruple bypass surgery. One has emphysema. They still do the drugs. They still drink. It's just that what they do, you know, but it's not my job to preach to them. I don't. I can lead by example, but that's all I can do, you know. It's just not my thing. Christmas at our house has always been a big drunken party. You know, I just didn't participate anymore. So that's, you know, both my mother and father were alcoholics. So statistically, over 90% chance that we would have the disease. It's just a statistic. And I think 6 of us, all 6, you know, to some extent, you know. I have a sister that has diabetes, and maybe she doesn't drink all the time, but she drinks, and she does all these things that she shouldn't be doing, which certainly are very addictive behavior. So, fortunately, out of all of our children, I think because of the example, my husband is also in the program, and he wouldn't care if I said so. I think because of what they've seen with us, none of our children have this disease, which is a miracle. It's a miracle. And yeah, thank you, Jesus. Yeah, because it is hereditary somehow, some way, you know. So my life as a child was extremely chaotic. The 3 brothers were born when I was 9 and 10, and my other sister was 11. And they were our kids. As of that point, I didn't have a childhood. We watched the kids. My mother went to work every 5 nights a week. My dad was in the tavern all day. He would come home, he would be drunk. And he would go to the tavern first. So basically, we raised our brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, when my brothers were 9, twins were 9, my brother was 10, my sister was 13. I was 18 and my sister was 20, my mother died. And all chaos broke loose because my father decided that he couldn't live with, he felt gay. I talked to him years and years ago about this. Why did you abandon the family at that point? He continued to drink and then he decided not to pay the bills. I came home one day and the state police were throwing us out into the street in hefty garbage bags. Everything we owned was set out in the street, and we had to find my father, and he was at a tavern. The people in the town did try to help us, but it was too late. He had, you know, and the sad thing is, I'm older, he probably had about $70,000 or $80,000 worth of equity in that home that he lost for not paying taxes and the bills for 6 months. So at that point, my 3 brothers and sister went to live with my older sister, who at age 20 was pregnant and had a 2-year-old. And I went to live with my ex-husband. So I went from the fire, the frying pan into the fire. You know, it was a little crazy. I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm going to give you 2 little things that God saved me. At age 17, we were partying. We were smoking pot, we were drinking, and we were on our way to the movies. And it was a rainy night, and we were in Schiller Park going to the outdoor movie and displays. And we had just switched cars. I had been in this car prior, and I'm a lot taller than the other girl that switched places with me. They did a turnaround. The driver died, and the other 3 people were hurt very badly. They recovered, but they did not. I was in that car 5 minutes before that accident. I mean, some of the strangest things have happened to me through my life that still makes me know I don't know what I'm doing here. My father and I did not get along, and so he was counting down the days where he could throw me out legally before I turned 18. So I wasn't going to let him get the best of me, you know, because I'm a stubborn person. And so I packed all my stuff in the front hall closet, and they left and I left. I moved out. I moved out without anything, and I just moved out and I moved in with a friend or the house with all the parties. That evening, I think it was one of the first times I really drank quite a bit. My girlfriend's brother had been killed in a motorcycle accident. I hadn't dealt with this type of thing. And I drank a lot. And I went to bed, and I slipped in the bathroom. And when I fell, I hit my head against the dresser, and I have a scar about this big in the back of my head where I split my head open. But of course, I was in the blackout. I went to bed. Thank God, my girlfriend's mother heard the fall and came to check on me, and they called an ambulance and got me to a hospital. So once again, God doesn't, you know, I used to tell people, well, again, I want you because you're so dang ornery. I'm not sure why God wants me around, but I didn't die. And I did end up going back home, and then within the next year and a half, that's when a lot of stuff began to happen. I was really doing a lot of crazy things. A lot of my friends were into some heavy drug use. For some reason, I wasn't. I just was doing drinking, a little bit of smoking pot, you know, but none of the crazy stuff. And I lost a few friends due to the drugs. So I moved in. I'm kind of going all over the place. I'm doing my best. I moved in with my husband when my other 3 brothers went there, and I stayed with him for about a year. And he started following me around because I tried to break up with him because I knew he was just not really that nice of a guy. But he knew how to get me, you know. He was following me around. He was doing all sorts of things, and he'd say, "Oh, what are you gonna do? Be the old maid taking care of your 5 brothers and sisters?" Because I was working and I was making a good wage. So I decided that I was going to take that money and give my father a place to live with my family and take care of them. And I did. And it didn't work for very long. My father was still drinking and taking most of that money. So a lot of times there wouldn't be food to eat. And then my sister had trouble in her marriage, and she moved in with her 2 kids, and oh, you know, a lot of stuff, it just kept happening. You remember certain little things. We were at the grocery store in Bensonville, and we had this big cart of groceries, and we turned around and someone stole it. You know, and it's like, wow, these things happen. The terrible things just kept happening. So by then, I ended up getting married because I didn't want this, you know, he convinced me that this is not the best life to live with all this family, taking care of all these kids. So when I left, it really fell apart bad. My sister was there. She ended up going back to her husband for a little while. And my father, of course, was back to his old, just not coming home. And so you have teenagers now, 3 boy teenagers and a girl 3 years old. If you can imagine what type of behavior was going on in that house. About a month after I got married, I was on the phone with my father, and my husband decided to smash me in the side of the head, and he perforated my right eardrum because he was mad, because he thought, well, she might go back there if they need her, you know. But I did leave, and if anybody knows anything about women in abuse or men in abuse, you get talked into going back because you don't think you can take care of yourself. I went back and I stayed with him. And then I had a child, and the abuse continued, not all the time. He didn't hit me all the time, but the verbal abuse, the demeaning abuse. You know, I often thought that I think when I got sober, I looked at it and I said, I think I might have had a drinking problem more because of the situation I was in. Because it was rough. It was rough. If, let's see the ages of people. Okay, if I didn't want to sleep with him, it was bad. He was mean. That really messes with your head. If you don't do this, then guess what's not going to happen, you know? When I had my daughter and I wasn't working, he wouldn't buy me food. He didn't buy food for my house. I got to get, my sister-in-law brought me food. He wouldn't buy the certain things the child needed. It was just really abusive. And I stayed for 19 years. 19 years. Into that insanity, you know, because I was scared. You know, I was in the women's shelter 3 times. And the last time he hit me, I couldn't walk out of the house for 2 weeks because my face was so bad. And I still stayed. Because I thought, oh yeah, well if you wouldn't have gone, I went out after work and I didn't normally do that. We were having a party for someone and he locked me out. So I climbed in a window. What else would you do? So I climbed in the window and I went to bed and he turned around and went bam, right in my face, and it was close range, so it was pretty disastrous. And I'm trying to think, my kids were still young and I still stayed. I'll get to some of the better things. I got a lot of horror in my life. I'm going to tell you, if I wrote a book, a lot of people wouldn't believe it. They just wouldn't believe it. A lot of things happened. I was molested as a child by someone working in a bakery, you know, just a lot of stuff. I didn't finish school. I got 290 days sophomore year. They didn't think I wanted to go, so they let me go. None of us finished. I don't think any of us finished school. I don't think we did. Maybe we have our GEDs now, but I don't think one of the 6 of us have graduated from high school. So what starts to lead to the good parts? Because there is good parts. I'm a very happy person, believe me. I mean, there was a reason for all of this. When I moved to Tennessee, I volunteered for a women's shelter. I stayed overnight with the women. I helped get a building up to do that. We worked very, very, very hard to do that. And today, it's the first women's shelter in the county I live in. And we're helping save women from that. And they had another building opened, and we didn't use it quite yet. And some of the women from jail were coming there to get their lives back on track so that they could go out into the community and they could survive and live. So that is probably one of the reasons God wants me around, because I have a lot that I can give to other people from my life experience. I finally, think I got sober in February 16th, 1993. No, 1991, because I'm almost sober 26 years. In my sobriety, a lot of good things have happened. A lot of bad things have happened. That because of the program and a belief in a higher power, I was able to get through without having to have a drink. I had, when Ron and I were first married, it was 2 years into the program when Ron and I got married, and my daughter had what they call a psychotic break from reality. And she didn't know us. And for 2 years, I had a daughter that I would even say to God, God, if this is her life, take her. Because she was so sick. So sick. And today, I have a beautiful grandchild. She went back to school, straight A's, Deanless. She takes her medication like she's supposed to, and she has become a wonderful young woman. And at that point, I mean, there was a point in there where I didn't know she'd come through. And she had a lot of drug problems because they masked the illness with drugs. So we didn't know she was mentally ill. We thought that she just liked to use drugs. And for parents out there who have these situations, you know, if any of you would have that, you go to Parents Anonymous and you learn that you use tough love. I put my daughter out in the street, not knowing she was mentally ill, but we threw her out of our house at 18 years old, and I'm not even going to tell you what she did to survive out there. But it was the best thing we ever did for her. The hardest thing we ever did for her. When my mother died, the doctor that I believe killed my mother called me into the room so I could watch her die. She was, to this day, I can't watch paddles be put on a person because it tears me up. It wasn't my mother. She looked like a monster. She looked like a monster. But he didn't want me to think he did. Oh, he wanted me to think he was doing everything he could for her. He also removed a cyst off my ovary when I was 16 in my appendix because I lied and said I was hurt so I wouldn't get grounded. So my parents took me to the hospital, and that's the surgery I had. And I didn't know my ovary was removed until I was 32 years old. When I had another operation and the doctor said I left the left ovary, I said, well, what, was the right bad? He says, you didn't have one. So, crazy little doctor, crazy doctor. So now Ron and I come to be married, and I'm still married to Ron. He just doesn't like watching the grandchildren for 10 days at that age, and I don't blame him. He stays in Tennessee and he golfs. I walked into my first AA meeting in Tennessee. It was in a gas station in the back room where everybody smoked, and the only, you know, alcohol, beer isn't alcohol in Tennessee. Beer cans stacked all over the place, and I'm the only woman in the room. That was different, because I was used to AA in Illinois. You walked in, there's a lot of women in the program in Illinois. Not so in Tennessee, not so in Tennessee, so that was kind of like, whoa. That was very, very hard to do. Walking into church, well, I also, you know, I hate to cut down religions, but I am a recovering Catholic. The first 3 steps in AA talk a lot about God and turning your own life over to prayer and understanding of God as you see Him, and I couldn't. 2 years before I could do that. And it happened, my one good friend that was also a member of LCM way back when, says, why don't you come to my church? And I says, okay. So I come here, and Pastor Dawson's up there, and you know he can be quite theatrical. And he is talking about, I could swear it was the Virgin Mary being a hooker, or something. And it was so bizarre. And I'm listening, I'm like, oh my God, you know, I'm listening to him. And all these things that God did and all these people that were really bad.
Yeah, right.
And then at the end, the point was, God loves you no matter what. Like, no, that can't be true, you know. How, God would not want me. That was my big 2-year block into the program. And I probably came to that service about a year trying to get sober. And I mean, it was cutting my drinking down. I mean, it really was working. It was cutting the drinking down, but I wasn't working the program, and I wasn't, because my higher power had to be God, because I had a belief in God, but God wouldn't want me. So through attending church, and I brought my 2 children into church, and Pastor Dawson confirmed them, and they went through everything. My one daughter was too stubborn to go, and unfortunately, she still doesn't have a God in her life, which I find very sad. But I do, because of walking in the doors of LCM and learning that God is not me, and God wants good things for me. And, a lot of things that I did, I probably didn't know any better. I did a lot of things to survive. And I drank, I think, through the relationship with my husband to survive, because I was afraid. I was so scared that I couldn't take care of my family. So on the day that I got sober, I laid the divorce papers on the counter and went to a hotel. February 16th, 1991. And I took my 3 kids and I left. In that year prior, I started a business. I started a house cleaning business. And I started working more nights a week. And I put almost $11,000 into a safety deposit box, because I didn't say how many houses I was cleaning, and nobody knew how much money I was making. And that was my security. I was afraid I wouldn't get child support. I had 3 kids. Another thing that happened is I cleaned house for a mortgage writer. Well, waitresses don't make money, and I'm sorry, Tim, if you're any IRS people in here, I didn't pay taxes on my house cleaning service, okay? At that time. And that's how I was able to have that money so that I would be comfortable going through that divorce. And I did it. God did it with me. The help of the church, the belief in God, the belief in the people around me, the meetings I went to. Meetings were like therapy. After I was sober about 5 years, this group of guys that I was always with, because we didn't smoke, says, "You were one of the angriest people I've ever seen walking the doors here." I said, "Oh, I was?" I didn't know that. In the time that I was going through a divorce, I was being stalked. There was a guy going to a meeting telling my husband what I was doing in the meeting. We were trying to put the 42-year-old man that sexually assaulted my 7-year-old daughter in jail. I had a lot. I had a lot on my plate. My ex-husband spiked, put booze and things on me, trying to get me to drink. He tried to rape me. I couldn't get him out of the house. I had him put out of the house once, and because my kids felt bad, I let him back in. Don't ever do that. Because once you let them back in, you're stuck with them. I had an order of protection on me, but it was a pretty horrific year, a lot of things going on. But I was able to do it this time through the help of my higher power, which is God. Without that, I'd probably still be right in the same place I was. I cannot say enough about what the Lord has done for me. Yeah, I'm standing here. I'm standing here sober with 3 college graduate children that don't ever remember their mother taking a drink, that don't have this disease. And the 5 others of ours are all the same. And I look at the rest of my family and their children, and I can't say the same. I can't say the same. So I have been blessed. Even though I went through a lot, I have my GED. I went back to school. I moved to Tennessee, and I had always wanted to be a physical education teacher, but never could because I didn't stay in school. I became a fitness instructor for 10 years. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I have had so many opportunities. And today, if anything happened, I could take care of myself. Because I'm not afraid anymore. Because anytime, house cleaning business and all these businesses are very, you just don't know. But every time I lost a job, better one came. I didn't clean houses with people who had 5 dogs anymore, or a lot of kids. I could pick and choose because I did a good job. And people wanted me to come and clean their house. And I actually, I enjoyed the work. Believe it or not, I enjoyed the work. But I can't say enough about Pastor Dawson. Pastor Dawson married us. He married my daughter who doesn't have a God. But she was married by a pastor, and I'm thankful for that. And maybe we can continue to put her on the prayer list and whatever else. She might have a God too. Her husband does, and the children are going. I want to just read you. I'm going to read this really quick, and I wasn't going to, but it's really something that I like. I found this book, Jesus Calls, and I read this in the mornings. And this is one of my favorite ones, and I don't want to be a preacher, but just to let you know, every day I wake up and I sit in my tub, and this is my morning beginning, and I go back to this one, and it says, I am your best friend as well as your king. Walk hand in hand with me through your life. Together we will face whatever each day brings, pleasures, hardships, adventures, disappointments. Nothing is wasted when it is shared with me. I can bring beauty out of the ashes of the lost dreams. I can glean joy out of sorrow, peace out of adversity. Only a friend who is also the King of Kings could accomplish this divine alchemy. There is no other like me. The friendship I offer you is practical and down to earth, yet it is saturated with heavenly glory. Living in my presence means living in two realms simultaneously. The visible world and the unseen, eternal and reality. I have equipped you to stay conscious of me while walking along dusty earthbound paths. Amen. So
much.
Thank you. I did a little chaotic.